wild child.
Hello, this is James Ian Bradfield from Manic Street Preachers.
Hello, I'm Nicky Wire.
And you are watching Rage. And tonight we are going to be unleashing our 44 years of musical knowledge and jukebox mayhem upon your channel. Hope you like it. This first track is by a band called Badfinger. The song is called Come and Get It. And it was a song that was written by Paul McCartney. Because Badfinger was signed to the Apple record label, and he wrote the song and he played some of the instruments on the record too, just to get Badfinger kind of rolling and off the ground, and they had their first hit with this song. And I suppose we're kind of choosing it because they're a Welsh band as well. Most of Badfinger were from Swansea in Wales, and it's just
one of the great Welsh bands. I think, you know, there's kind of, if I'd be so brazen to include ourselves, you know, I think there's Badfinger, Furry Animals, us, Stereophonics, for the great Welsh bands, and I think we all look up to Badfinger because they're so melodic, so sad. They intrinsically kind of make you feel Welsh because there's a lot of tragedy involved.
And they had big hits in America with songs like Baby Blue and Day After Day, and they wrote one of the biggest songs of all time. They wrote the song Without You, which was a gigantic hit for Harry Nilsson and Mariah Carey around the world.
And they never made a penny on it, the poor buggers.
It's a tragic story, but it's uplifting music. So this is Come and Get It by Badfinger. This next song is Helicopter by Deer Hunter. And I've been into Deer Hunter since their album, which was Microcastles, which was kind of like a double album. And I just kind of fell in love with this band straight away. I don't know why. I sensed that there was some kind of madness underneath all the music. And my kind of gut instinct was proven to be right. Bradford Cox he's kind of one of those songwriters and musicians that should have been around in the late 80s and 90s. You know, he belongs to the Morrisseys and the Ian McCullochs of this world. He just slags other bands off, and he's just still lives with his parents, I think. And
and he just lives in this bedroom full of dust and shabbiness, and he's truly unique. I can't think of anyone left like him, you know. I don't know what he is. Is he a man? Is he a woman? Is he a kind of alien from outer space? There's not many bands that are just totally unique left in rock and roll, and Deer Hunter really are. They're just kind of exquisite in their oddness.
This next song is Jackie Wilson Said by Dexy's Midnight Runners. And I suppose Kevin Rowland was another one of those just utterly unique musicians in the 80s that seemed to kind of take a different journey and a different path to anybody else around him. And this song, Jackie Wilson Said, has a real kind of Atlantic soul imprint to it. There's lots of horns in there and stuff, and kind of, I think some of the tracks on our new album, which will be out later this year, has a bit of a Dexys influence in terms of the brass sections and the way they're so warm and soulful. And this song is just amazing. We remember this, watching this on Top of the Pops when we were young, don't we?
Yeah, because instead of having a picture of Jackie Wilson behind them projected, they had a picture of Jockey Wilson, who was a famous Scottish darts player who once told me to fuck off. He's one of my heroes, actually. But I asked for his autograph and he went, fuck off, which I thought was brilliant because he was rock and roll. And I think Kevin Rowland, like Jim said, there's so many mavericks from that. When we grew up, that you could look up to people like John Lydon and Kevin Rowland and Ian McCulloch and Morrissey. It was such a brilliant education because these people were, you know, so kind of truthful and so honest with what they said, and you know, they didn't just love, they hated as well. It's just, I'm so relieved that we grew up in an era where rock stars could educate you. Doesn't seem to be that way anymore, and this song is just so joyful. Really gives you so much energy. It gives you a sense of wonder.
This next track we're choosing is by Elvis Presley, probably one of his best loved tracks, Suspicious Minds. And I suppose if you came from Wales and the Valleys, just like many other places in the world, the influence of Elvis Presley was kind of inescapable, really. And my mother was a gigantic Elvis fan. She took a day off work when Elvis Presley died. And strangely, it's all come full circle. Again, our next single, which is going to be out later this year, has a bit of a Suspicious Minds influence on it, which I think will be kind of obvious, hopefully, to people when they first hear it. And yeah, he's still treated like a god back in Wales, Elvis, really.
I think also there's certain key records. Well, obviously, me and Jim's the same age, and your parents had certain records, usually kind of ABBA's greatest hits, one Elvis 70s period record, maybe Neil Diamond's greatest hits, Demis Roussos, and I think some of those melodies just stay with you as you grow up. They never leave you. And 70s era, Las Vegas Elvis era is by far my favourite kind of version of Elvis. The musicianship is just staggering beyond belief. Some of the greatest session guys ever assembled in the room.
He had a drummer the drummer in the band at that time called Ronnie Tuttle, I think, or Ronnie Tutt, who was just with Keith Moon, who's probably up there as one of the most kind of like intricate, articulate, and explosive drummers that ever lived. So there you go, Suspicious Minds by Elvis Presley.
So next up we have the Go-Betweens with Spring Rain, a truly magical record from our youth. I remember it. There was a program in the UK called the Old Grey Whistle Test, and the Go-Betweens came on, played that, and it was just so forceful, and they just kind of stared into the camera, but with such poise as well. And at this point, we were kind of full-on indie kids. We sort of heard about them and the Triffids and coming from Melbourne and stuff. But that kind of full representation and the wordplay, fantastic lyrics, and then Liberty Bell, that record in particular, just sort of, I don't know, it's never left me. When we were in Melbourne the other week, and I was walking in a couple of record shops, and Streets of Your Town came on, and just seemed to fit Melbourne so fantastically. Yeah, it's one of my favourite bands ever.
When we were young, the evening sessions on Radio 1 we used to listen to, when lots of indie music was played in the evening. You know, there was lots of Australian music on the airwaves then. There was bands like the Hoodoo Gurus with tracks like I Want You Back. You know, like I said, the Go-Betweens, Lime Spiders, I think. Yes. Oh, I'm not sure if they're from New Zealand. I don't want to make that mistake. But yeah,
obviously Nick Cave as well.
And Nick Cave, you know, and kind of this song, you know, Spring Rain, was just a gigantic indie hit in Britain. It was played to death for 6 months, and it just reminds you of being really young.
Just that little guitar intro, you know. Magic.
This next track we're picking is Malibu by Hull, off the Celebrity Skin album. And again, we're not trying to force this point. You know, this song does remind us of being in Australia for the first time, because we played the big day out in 1999. We were on the same bill as Marilyn Manson and Hull, and they used to play this song, and we just stand at the side of the stage and listen to this song. It was amazing, actually. People forget how good, you know, Courtney Love was as a performer. She is one of the truly best female rock frontwomen of all time, and we were obsessed with this album, I think.
Oh, I mean, I can almost smell arriving into Australia in a good way, going to Sydney, and for some reason we were staying out in Bondi Beach.
Yeah.
And it just, I remember it's so evocative of that time. We actually did Rage on this very show 14 years ago. Probably chose this track then as well. But doing the big day out was such an experience. You know, you'd go backstage, there'd be koala bears hanging around. Marilyn Manson would be puncturing the swimming pools and flooding the area. Courtney'd be trying to cause a riot.
And we were just being boring in the corner.
Just observing. You know, it was actually really nice to come from the madness of the UK, where we were, you know, at our biggest, so to speak, and sort of be entertained by everyone else. And Melissa Duff was one of my favourite bass players in Hull. Yeah. She was fantastic. Loved watching her play every night. It was a magical trip.
It was. Now we're back. Playing to smaller crowds, but we're back. This next song is called Perfect Skin which is from one of the great bands of the 80s, late 80s, called Lloyd Cole and the Commotions. And this was a hit in Britain, which was kind of start of a small revolution where bands like Echo and the Bunnymen and the Smiths and Lloyd Cole and the Commotions were all starting to get into the top 20, and it felt like, you know, the indie guitar revolution was beginning to take over. And Lloyd Cole follows a tradition of very erudite British lyricists that just came from a different angle to anybody else. And he was probably one of the most articulate and kind of cultured lyricists stroke songwriters out there at the time, I think. At
this point, we had a magazine called Smash Hits, which was a pop magazine, but at this point, Morrissey and Ian McCulloch did a famous cover together. Lloyd Cole got on the cover, and it did seem like the landscape was changing, and he was such an amazing lyricist. He kind of, through his lyrics, I really got into T.S. Eliot, the poet. There's a line brilliant line in Perfect Skin. She's got cheekbones like geometry and eyes like sin, and she is sexually enlightened by Cosmopolitan. Just such a fantastic set of words to get into a hit record. And Rattlesnakes, which this is off the album Rattlesnakes, I think it's just one of the perfect albums of the 80s. Yeah, so well constructed.
It's just one of those records that's never dated, really. If somebody actually came out with this record now, I think, you know, people would herald it as the new arrival of some kind of Bob Dylan character. So here we go, Perfect Skin, perfect record by Lloyd Cole and the Commotions.